Here's a place where all of us can be safe. Our stories of transformation can be safe, and all the things we want to research are safe here. This is Safe Space with Cheyenne. I'm really excited you're here, and I hope you stick around for a while, because I've got a lot to show you before I leave Earth. I love you guys. Hello! Welcome back to your safe space. It is me, Cheyenne, or Moonbeam, whatever you want to call me. So originally, this episode was supposed to be an anonymous story coming in from a lady named Uma about a crazy spiritual awakening and a crazy spiritual transformation and initiation into energy work in the form of Reiki and Angel Reiki. So if you're not familiar with those, we'll definitely get into those later. However, Uma has decided to step forward with her real identity, and her real identity is Tabatha Neubert. And she's coming on today to not only describe to us her direct experience with her spiritual awakening, but also get extremely vulnerable with us about how crazy you feel when you start becoming a channeler. So I always like to say everybody wakes up differently and everybody has different gifts and different abilities when they wake up, which is why the safe space is here to not only learn from, but observe from and go, wow, that's really out there. That's really possible. And not demonize people for what they're going through, what you think they're going through, or any belief or closed mind that you might restrict on a topic is what we speak today. I have found talking about a spiritual awakening to a person that has no context of what it is really demonizes the process and what comes afterwards. I am a true believer that we are all vessels for the divine, and with the disclosure that's going on in the world in today's society, it's obviously apparent that we are not alone. And this isn't the first episode that we're going to have about channeling and what it feels like to have higher beings come through you, whether in Reiki sessions or writing channeled messages. So my heart goes out to anybody on your awakening journey. This episode is definitely for you. And Tabatha, thank you so much for being here today and telling your vulnerable story, because I know it's been a hell of a ride and is a hell of a ride still to this day. So how are you doing? How are you hanging on today?
Hi, I'm doing well.
I'm glad to hear it. So this story kicks off at 2020 at the craziest time of everybody's life. I was having a baby, going through some crazy shit. I had already woken up, but I definitely got to come back into my grounded human sense to be able to bring my daughter into the world. I was not focused on anything in the spiritual realm. I was totally in root chakra energy and survival. And how am I going to raise this baby now that I have seen beyond the veil and I cannot close my eyes? But I'm really curious what happened to you in 2020 that just revolutionized your whole life and your perception of reality.
So in March of 2020, obviously the week after COVID really kicked off here in Kansas, my work shut down around March 16th. And I had known for years that I was an empath, but I kind of just dealt with it. I didn't think you could do anything about it. And then in 19, it got worse. I could feel everybody's anger and whatever. And then when 2020 hit, that second week of March, I could feel everybody's fear, everybody's anger, and my whole body just felt like it was vibrating. I was thankful work was shut down. I didn't sleep for almost 10 days for those first 2 weeks home, roughly around 10 days. I was awake, constantly itching all over, scratching. I joked that I had fleas. I literally was scratching my head constantly over every place on my body. I really thought I was losing my mind.
It's kind of easy to go through, especially when you're having all of these crazy things going on. There are people I know that seek medical attention during an awakening process. There's a man that I talked to. He had a Kundalini awakening due to several ayahuasca retreats, and he went through the whole ringer of Western medicine just from A to Z to figure out what was going on with him. And the only thing that Western medicine could tell him was that he was overly stressed out. So then that's when he started reaching out to spiritual and holistic practitioners and doctors, I guess you could say, to get a clear sense of what Western medicine leaves out. So did you feel a pull to obviously dig deeper into the spiritual and empathic side of research?
No, I have been chronically ill since 1999, roughly. I have 3 autoimmune diseases. So I'd been through the ringer. I knew my body very well, what to expect. And in 2015, I switched to natural options and was able to go off over $500 worth of medicine a month by switching to essential oils and supplements. And so I know my body pretty well after having almost a new diagnosis every year for the last 20 years.
That's honestly really inspiring, especially with autoimmune. I know if you're speaking in like a Louise Hay language, like from a heal your body, know your body, and emotional code perspective, anything with autoimmune is basically in gut health that you can refer to, and it's the body fighting against you. So it's you fighting against yourself in a crazy emotional format. So taking like the disease out of it for a minute and just thinking, okay, what am I not facing in myself? What am I not confronting in myself? Or what am I not accepting about myself is one of the big things. So do you think in your awakening that was one of the things that, yes, you understood that you were an empath? When I feel the same way you did, like I was like, what a fucking curse to have no proof that I'm like a garbage can for everybody else around me. Like I'm just like some vortex where all this shit can come and just sit in me and act out for people, right? But when did you kind of shift your perspective from it feeling like a curse to empowering and learning how to protect and, again, just start taking care of your energy bodies and your physical body at the same time?
Well, first it was my physical body and just dealing with my shit. And starting in 2016 or 17, I read this book called You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. And it just made me realize things that, like, even if you don't necessarily believe in what the traditional people believe in God, you need to believe in something. And so then I started reading a lot of personal development books and just dealing with my baggage and my trauma that I had. So then when 2020 hit, that's when, like, I've got to find somebody to help me. I got to find a mentor. I got to find a teacher, or I literally am going to lose my mind by the time we have to go back to work. I was thankful work was closed for 2 months so that I could get a handle on a lot of what I was going through. And I started with meditation twice a day, every single day. And then I took this class called Personal Intuition Development, which my mentor gave me a mantra to say every day, twice a day. And I did that for almost a year before I could be around my own family and not be sick for 5 days.
So you're really just pulling everything in your vortex.
Oh, yeah. It was bad.
Yeah. I've heard and I've read similar stories. So, again, I love that you're sharing all of this with us. Keep telling us, like, maybe get into how you got into Reiki or felt like you wanted to start studying energy systems. Was it obviously wanting to, like, the energy's already going through me anyways, I might as well figure out how to control it or transmute it?
So yes, when I started the Personal Intuition Development class, that was my main goal. Learn about my own energy, learn how to control my own energy, learn how to keep other people's out of energy, and set healthy boundaries. And so the thing that I never thought of that was kind of like mind-blowing to me is my teacher had told me, think about a mason jar, right? You put the big rocks in, the little rocks in, and then you pour sand in. Where does the sand go? And all those cracks. That's what your energy field could do. I was like, oh, it was like an epiphany moment that made so much sense. So she always taught us, if you feel yourself from the light from within to out, because everybody wants to talk about shielding. I'm like, if you shield too long, you keep the good out too. So I just would imagine my being filled with light, and then it would grow and grow. And I did that every day, twice a day for a year. And so as part of the Intuition Development class, we got to take level 1-2 of Angelic Reiki. It was a bonus for paying for the 6-month course. And so I did Angelic Reiki in January of 21. I had no idea what Reiki even was. I just didn't even care. I just wanted to take this class to figure this out so I could stop feeling like shit. And so 2 weeks before we went to the class, we had to read these things called non-conforming affirmations. The first time I went to read these affirmations, I was sitting in my room. It was completely dark, like pitch black. You can't see your hand in front of your face. I live alone. I had my headphones in, just listening to relaxing music, and I started reading these affirmations. And as soon as I was done, I put the paper down, and all of a sudden I seen this bright light, like the brightest light you can imagine. Remember, if my eyes are closed, it's pitch black. So I actually opened my eyes, like thinking, what the heck happened? No, it was pitch black in my room still. I closed my eyes again, and all of a sudden I hear Tabatha. I was like looking around, I'm like, yes? And then I hear, are you ready? And of course, internally, I'm thinking, ready for what? I had no idea what was going on. So then I'm like, who's talking to me? And they're like, go on. And then I was like, oh, shit. And so then I'm like, yes. And then all of a sudden I started seeing all these lights and all these symbols. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what just happened. So I read them a second time and not too much happened. I just saw some more white light. But the third time I read them was like the 2 nights before we were supposed to leave on a Friday to go to this class. And I kept saying, "Oop, Jesus is with you. Something big's going to happen. Something big's going to happen." I just kept hearing this over and over in my head. So as soon as we get to the facility on Friday, my body felt like it was vibrating, and I was sweating buckets. I'm one of those people who don't ever sweat, like never. And I was just sweating profusely. It was disgusting. I just kept having to wipe my hands. I hated it. And so we did the first attunement, again, not knowing what an attunement was, not even knowing what Reiki was. And the entire time, I just kept getting hotter and hotter. I thought I was literally going to pass out. I was swaying. I was sweated all the way through my clothes. And I was just like, what just happened? My teacher's like, everybody's supposed to have the experience they're meant to have.
Oh my gosh. I'm you in this story as you're telling it to me, and I don't know what I would do. Because yes, you're right. Attunements, they can go any which way. You know, especially if it's Seha key, like that's the emotional key. And you might like purge for 2 weeks after that stuff. So I am not familiar with any of the attunements on Angel Reiki or any of the curriculum. But after I heard your story, I was like, whoa, I don't know if my grounded life could take that type of attunement, especially like the sweaty palms and all the things that you saw that would honestly, in a way, like freak me out at this point. I hate to say it because it's supposed to be angelic, but still, when you have no grounds for like what you're seeing and what you're doing, I mean, it could flip you just like a psychedelic trip that you felt like you went too far. I think that's probably the best comparison is you're like, oh, yeah, it took too much, you know, but
yeah, I just had complete faith in my teacher.
Yeah, definitely. But when you're sober, it's completely different. I know like the taboo around energy work for a lot of people still. And I know that there's this big debate is God in it? Is God not in it? And I know everybody has their own relationship with God, but especially in angelic Reiki, when you're going to have an experience outside of what you're used to feeling, oh my goodness, I would need integration time. I think that's what I'm getting from your stories. It's just like your channel just blew the hell open. And you're like, what is this? What is this? What is this? What's that symbol? What's this color? What's this feeling? What's going on with this?
Yeah, there was no time because it was Friday night, all day Saturday, and all day Sunday. So the next day, as soon as I get out of bed, again, I hear something big's going to happen. Something big's going to happen. I'm just like thinking, oh my gosh, what's going to happen, right? So we get to class Saturday, and she's going to have us practice on people. There were 8 people in our class. She had prepared us with people we didn't know so that there was no knowing, ahead of time of what. So she puts me with this lady, and this lady wants to lay on the table and be the client first, and I'm going to be the practitioner first. So I put my hands on this lady, and our teacher is reading the thing and just having us go through the motions, but she's reading it out loud. So I'm standing there with my hands on this lady. For Angelic Reiki, we put your left hand on their high heart and your right hand on their abdomen. I put my hands on this woman, and my body temperature just starts climbing and climbing. And I'm like gagging, and I'm like, oh, God. My teacher's like, remember, you can ask them to dial it back. You get to control the energy. So I'm like, okay. So I did that. And all of a sudden, I just feel all these lights, and I feel the energy moving in this lady. I'm like, okay, I don't know what just happened. So when she's done, she sits up and she's like, I just saw butterflies everywhere. For people that don't know, I love butterflies and I have them tattooed all over my body, which she didn't know because it was wintertime. But she said she saw butterflies everywhere when I worked on her. So we switched positions. As soon as this woman that I don't know puts her hands on me, I start seeing all these faces fly by like a slideshow. And I knew they were deceased. Like I saw a little boy that had blood all over him. I saw a lady laying underneath a truck outside of an ER, and they had to use a crane to get this off of her, and all these things. So when we're done, the lady's like, oh, okay, did you see anything? And I'm like, nope. She's like, are you sure? I'm like, nope. And then my teacher pipes in, if you saw something, you need to tell them. And I'm like, so I tell this woman what I saw, and her mouth drops open. She's like, I used to be an ER nurse, and I know exactly the lady you're talking about under the truck.
So do you believe that you are obviously picking up on residual energy that obviously that woman had picked up and somehow kept in her energy field that whole time, unconscious, not knowing, right? You don't think about that when you work in an ER, that you're going to take the trauma of somebody's accident home with you, but now you're seeing a patient, an extremely traumatic patient that she worked on, and you obviously sensed it in her energy field and saw it in your third eye, which is creepy.
Because with Reiki, you get healed as you're giving, as receiving. Since you're channeling angels, you get both ways because you mesh all three energies into one. So anytime you give, you get. And so, yeah, she knew every client that I saw when I described their face. That was my first experience.
So did that make you, because I go into anything with skepticism, not to like be a dick about it, but just as a protective amulet almost. I'm like, what's going on here? You know, why isn't this mainstream? Which it doesn't have to be mainstream to be true, right? But still, there's a level of skepticism when you're getting into anything in this field, especially energy work. So how could you not be a believer after that experience?
Exactly. I was just like, what the hell just happened? I couldn't even I had no words. Like, I just sat there, like, I think, and listened to her. The teacher went on to the next section, and I just think I sit there. I'm just like, I didn't even know what to think. Like, I just couldn't even process that.
Yeah. So, again, I'd be like, I need integration time.
Yeah. So we had another attunement that day, which was still kind of movement crazy, seeing the different angels, seeing lights, seeing pillars, all kinds of things. And then we switched and did practices on another. So the next lady that I'm with, while she's working on me, I keep feeling like she's trying to like shove me through the floor. You know, you're supposed to just put your hands lightly on them. It felt like she was pushing me with all her might. And I kept seeing Jesus walk around me in a circle. And I'm like, what is going on? And they're like, she's pushing on you because you're going to levitate if she doesn't. And I'm like, I just can't even with that, right?
Yeah, I'm like, too far, take it back.
Yeah, right? And so I hear my teacher in the room. She's like, remember, everybody, we need to stay in the room. We need to, like, you know, right. But I didn't even know what traveling and any of that was. So I'm just like, I don't know what she's talking about, right? And so when we were done, I asked the lady, I said, were you pushing on me as hard as you could? She's like, no. I just kept my hands the same the whole time. Okay. She's like, I kept seeing this stupid butterfly flying around my head, though.
A stupid butterfly. That's so funny. That's some beginner shit that you would say.
She's like, it kept flying in my way. Like, you know, I couldn't focus. And so then when I worked on her, she literally passed out and started snoring. Couldn't believe it.
Well,
that's how relaxed she was.
It's draining when you get into it first. I mean, you're learning how to channel with, for lack of a better term, manipulate energies. Transmute, I think, is the more positive way of saying it. Yeah, it's just a lot. It's a lot coming into it as a beginner, especially having no background of it. Putting your trust in a practitioner is a really big thing.
Yeah, so then we get to Sunday.
Nerve-wracked listening to this, picturing like I'm you. I'm like, I don't know how I could have accepted this.
So then we get to Sunday. Again, as soon as I open my eyes Sunday morning, today's the day, and I'm like, oh God, what is going to happen after the last 2 days? Like, what's going to happen? And I get there, and I wasn't even in the room, and I'm just like all, like just completely, felt like I've been plugged into an electrical socket. So we go through the rest of the day, and I got to the point where anytime we would do healings on each other, everybody in the class was staring at me, wanting to hear my story, because I was the one out of the 8 people in the class that kept having the most profound experiences. So I stopped sharing because I felt odd, weird, because they were all like, when she'd say, who wants to share, they would all look at me. And I'm like,
they're like,
okay.
What do you see? I get that too. I totally get that.
So we get to the final attunement. This final attunement might have been the death of me. So we start, it was 2.5 hours, almost 3 hours long. We started sitting in a meditative position. And anytime we did our attunements, we also had a piece of clear quartz point or a tower that we held in our hand, because that way the symbols were implanted in the crystal and in us.
That's great, but quartz is it's an amplifier of everything, of everything.
Let me tell you. So we're sitting there, we get ready, we're in our meditative position, and she starts talking. And every third or fourth move, I would move my arms, my legs, up in the air, down and around, lean over. I'm like, I don't know how with gravity I didn't fall over sometimes, because it literally felt like I was sitting like on the corner of my hip, or like it was a workout. Every time she spoke, I almost moved. I sweated through all of my clothes to like I left a wet spot on the floor, like when we were done. That's how much I sweated during this last attunement. So during this attunement, I see Archangel Gabriel, and I see Archangel Sandoval, and I see flames, and I see pillars, and I see all these symbols. There's one part she talks about the tunnel of light, and I see this tube of light like shooting up from my body. And then all of a sudden it starts to talk about clearing and death, and I just start bawling uncontrollably. And I hate crying in front of anybody. Like, I don't cry in front of people. Mm-hmm. Like, that's my thing. To the point where I will hold it in no matter what. I just start bawling uncontrollably. And they're like, she's like, remember, you can stop if it's too much. And I'm like, I just couldn't. Like, she'd speak and I'd move. Like, I could not get a hold of myself. Like, so she brings me Kleenexes, like, wipe off my face. And then all of a sudden I was just like completely like limp. And then all of a sudden I was in this dark space. And I had to feel like I had to curl my legs all up and be like as squeezed in as possible. And all of a sudden I hear this pop. And then there was like this little white line in front of me. I'm like, what the hell's going on? And this crack starts cracking further down in front of me. And I hear, you need to crawl out. I'm like, crawl out of what? Like through the crack. And I'm like, what the hell is going on, right? I'm trying to manage the brain between my human brain, the energy, like it was such a struggle. So I decided I put my hands out like I'm going to open this crack, and I pull open this like curtain, and I pull this down. It felt like a shell. And as soon as I put my hands back down beside me, I just felt like I had to literally like wipe myself off. Like I was all sticky and gooey. Yeah. And I'm like, what is going on? Like my brain, my human brain's trying to make sense of this. And then all of a sudden I start stretching, like I'm expanding, like moving my arms, moving my legs, moving everything I can and get as big as I can. And then all of a sudden I see this butterfly in my third eye, and I hear, you have been transformed.
A metamorphosis.
And then I couldn't have told you that. It took me 10 months to process that. I wasn't right for 10 days. Like I literally, initially, I can see what happened now. I know it was rebirth, but then I felt like I had been violated. I was not right for 10 days. I felt awful. Mm-hmm. It was not a good experience at first. But if I wouldn't have had that experience, there's no way I would be where I'm at today. I'd still be hiding in my closet.
Well, again, I mean, I compare a lot of energy work to people that I've talked about psychedelic experiences, whether you're like, oh, I've taken too much, or I saw this and I can't unsee this. But because I went through this crazy expansive experience, now this happened. And you could say that just in like normal life too, like experiencing a death, experiencing a job loss, experiencing losing your house, anything that's going to break you fucking open, right? It's going to transform you. And at the time, it's going to feel awful. You're going to be like, the fuck did I do? You might even blame yourself because you're like, I put myself in this situation. I decided to take this class. What the hell was I thinking? And then later on, like I'm a retrospect type person. If I'm walking through the fire, I don't have a language for the fire. I'm trying to figure out a way out of it. This does not feel good, but this is for me in some capacity. So let's just get through it. And then you have integration time. You know, if you have a support system, if you have a therapist, if you have someone you can reach out to and talk to, fucking splendid. And then when you get to retrospect, which is my favorite part for me, you're going back through and you honestly start seeing what those experiences did for you, again, in psychedelic, normal life, or spiritual work. And you're like, oh, I'm actually really grateful for that experience. Obviously, like as a listener who's never been to any sort of class, this really is not an advertisement for Angel Reiki, you know, because they're like, fuck, I don't want that to happen to me. And I don't blame you. But there is such a beautiful silver lining to your story that I love. I love that the butterflies are following you everywhere and that you had this amazing transformational, again, like cocoon-like metamorphosis into what you are supposed to be, and this pathway that continuously unfolds. And your story, the stuff that we're going to continue to reveal of what you're going through and have been going through and see in your, not only channelings, but your healing sessions, you have to have radical faith in God and in the divine. And I say that because just going back and reading biblical texts, I try to apply biblical texts to people actually reenacting it in today's society. And like Jim Carrey and the other actor, I hate, like Evan Almighty. I can't remember who plays him, but like Bruce Almighty and Evan Almighty are really, really good observations of what it would be like if God came to one of us today and was like, I need you to like build an ark. There's going to be a flood. Right. Or like, hey, do you want to be God for a day? Like if that actually happened in modern times, like wouldn't we believe it was just a frontal lobe enlargement or a messiah complex? So when you're like, how did these people actually go through this? Not saying that like anybody that's a healer is like in a messiah in any format. I just believe it's kind of like helpers, you know, like angels help God. I think it's the same thing on the human format. I think you have to have a high level of integrity, and you have to have a devotion to keeping your temple clear, honestly, which is the scariest part about learning energy work from people or doing energy work or being an energy practitioner yourself. You really have to audit your shit constantly. And when you're not good, shut it down and work on yourself, right? Don't keep pushing through and going, oh, my guides will do it for me. It's totally fine. I can treat my body like shit and my guides will do it for me.
No.
You know, and again, I've seen it. I've experienced it. I've watched it. And I think it needs to be talked about instead of people focusing on the love and light. But that's also why I think your story is extremely important.
And I struggled in the beginning because I went to church every Sunday. I helped my youth group. Up until this happened, I went out, you know, I still had gone to church all the time. And so I got lucky with my teacher, the mentor I had. Her dad was a pastor and she was shunned by her family for years. And, you know, she said to me, if God gave you this gift, then why weren't you supposed to use it?
That's kind of the thing that I came around to. When I first woke up, I really loved comparing notes with other people that believed they too had a spiritual awakening. And whether they said it was like the Holy Spirit came in me, Jesus take my sins away, however it really happened, I was totally interested in any way that they had that literally like paradigm shift in their perception and was able to have that eagle eye view. And it wasn't because I had a spiritual awakening that Claire's senses activated and that's when it happened. It was me realizing that these things had activated over and over and over from when I was a very small child. And due to the religion that we were in, due to the conditioning, due to obviously having no fucking clue that that could actually happen. Like I really thought it was my imagination for the longest time. But like how many coincidences, how many cemeteries, haunted houses, past loved ones, how many things do you have to see and remember before when you actually do wake up, if you do, like you have to put those dots together and go, how far back does this go? Because my awakening wasn't the first time that I saw beyond the veil. And that's something that it took me and is still taking me a couple years to realize, like, okay, I didn't want to tell people about this because when I told people about it, they were like, yeah, according to the Bible, that's demonic. One thing that really freaking helped me, though, realize it really was in my family, whether it was discussed or talked about. I used to go home and I would confide in my mom about all of this shit because I was like, you're never going to guess what's happening to me. This is the craziest thing in the world. And I can't even believe I'm saying it. But because this radical shift happened in me, this is going on now too. And it was a saving grace, in my opinion. I honestly think that, you know, I would have like attempted suicide again had this not happened, in a weird, crazy way. Like ideation happened in my asleep life and waking life. But I sat there and I was like, I don't have ideation anymore. Like, I understand why I'm supposed to be here. And, you know, it's going to be a little tough with the things that I'm going to go through. I'm like, and if the ideation comes, like, I know why it's there. I know, like, it's kind of like trying to put me back on course. And then she finally told me, because my whole family on her side of the family is Catholic for like generations. Like, my grandma was a Catholic nun. Well, she was. And then she met my grandpa and she left the church before she took her vows. It's that beautiful story. Like, thank you, Grandma. I'm here now. Right. But she told me about my grandma Ruth, that she used to hear and see things in her. They didn't call it third eye, but she would see it in her mind. She would pray, she would grab a rosary, and she went to church and she told the preacher, hey, I'm hearing things, I'm seeing things. And they, at the time, told her that it was a demon trying to possess her. And here's your holy water. We're going to shut this down for you, so to speak. And I was like, I can't believe that's demonic possession, because the first person that came to me was my grandma letting me know about the afterlife. And the next entity that came to me was Jesus Christ in my bedroom. So you're telling me that these two holy figures are demons coming to let me know that heaven exists, that there is an afterlife, and whether it's heaven you prefer, I think it's the highest frequency we all come from, unconditional love, angelic realm, yada, yada, yada. But I'm like, this isn't resonating with my body anywhere I go with this. And I had to step away and hide these parts of myself from loved ones, because it's not in their belief system or their framework. It's not in their book. In their book, it will tell you to stay away from all of the things that I'm having direct experience with. Now, I say this because I know I'm not the only one that's experienced that. And I know I'm not the only one that has had the false label of a new age follower be put on me. And I am not a follower of the new age. I started going back, probably like you did, and trying to get the oldest text possible that I could to see how far the edits actually went back. And again, help me come to terms with this God-given gift that I had had since I was a kid. I had denied, and because of denying a part of myself, I really was starting to turn into possibly getting sick or chronically ill down the road. So I know there was, not that long ago, you also did like a 30-day intense yoga retreat. So coming, not to skip too far ahead, but coming out of Angelic Reiki and all of the metamorphosis that you had done then, you went into this extremely rigorous program where you were like, am I going to make it through? Oh my gosh. But how did how do I say it? Almost the connection between the new you that you came into being, embodying, and then adding now this new practice, like how did that really help clear out your temple and your sight for when you came back?
Well, there's more that happened with the other layers of Reiki. I went to professional level. So each class I had at least one crazy profound instance during the class and after the class. I don't know if you want me to touch on those things or not.
Yes, let it rip.
So level 2 in Reiki is actually level 3 and 4 combined. And so this time we were there. This is kind of where you kind of start getting into learning the training to do it professionally, because then there's professional level. So my second 3-day weekend of Angelic Reiki, I saw Dawal Kul. So Dawal Kul is known also as the Tibetan. He was channeled by Alice Bailey. She channeled all of his teachings into 8 books. I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know who this odd-looking man was that I kept seeing the whole weekend. So we did this part where she went through the attunement, and when in Angelic Reiki, when they say the phrase to go into the attunement, they talk about the 5 hidden languages and the 2 that are unknown. And they go through and they list the 5 hidden languages, the known languages, and they say the 2 unknown. And when she said the 2 unknown, I was given one of those to unknown language that's never been known. The name of it. So, and also I kept hearing all weekend, you're a leader, you're a leader, you're a leader. I'm like, I'm not a leader. I get home that Sunday night, wake up that Monday morning, mind you, just woke up out of bed. I open my eyes and I start seeing all these symbols. I'm like, what is going on? Because the whole ride home with my two friends, they kept saying I'm a leader. I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. Like total resistance. So I asked, I'm like, why are you showing me these symbols? They said, these symbols are in the order of Lord Melchizedek. You will need these symbols in the future to lead a spiritual revolution. I'm like, fine, I'll be a leader. I just gave in. Third class, 3 months later. This weekend, again, is to teach us how to do it professionally. This weekend, as soon as I get there, Gandhi comes to me. So Gandhi's with me all weekend, telling me how I'm going to just be able to spread peace and love in the world. That's kind of my leadership going to be. Again, I was given the name of one of those unknown languages. It was the one that I had heard previously. So after that, I saw Gandhi for weeks. And then I went through a light activation about 6 months after that, and now every time I work on anybody, I see Jesus, Gandhi, and Wakul in a triangle in front of me to this day. And so the reason I decided to go to Shivananda Yoga Retreat Ashram in the Bahamas, well, I wasn't going there for a yoga teacher like more. There was 11 people in my class, and they all went there to become a yoga teacher. I went there just because I thought maybe being away from everything, having a clean diet, doing yoga every day, that it maybe help enhance my spiritual gifts or give me new insight. Of course, we weren't allowed to do any work while we were there. We could do no energy work on other people there. It was a strictly vegetarian diet. We were awake every day at 5:30 a.m., didn't go to bed till 10:30 p.m., 6 days a week, doing yoga twice a day in classes. So during classes, sometimes when we'd get into the main temple, well, before we got there, when we did our tour, they said that where the main temple was, that the founder of the ashram was a Mayan temple under the main temple. So he built the main temple on this rock that was already there. I went and stood in the center of this room right next to the temple, and all of a sudden I thought my heart was going to fly out of my chest. It was like, okay, I'll step back. Every time I tried to step on that spot, I couldn't. Mm-hmm. This is where we had our lecture class every day. It was in this temple. And some days when I would close my eyes, I would see, they had the 5 statues, the 2 founders, and then Shiva, and a couple of the other gods behind him. I would actually see their human form standing behind our teacher when I would close my eyes without even trying. There was times when I would just lay down when we were doing yoga. I saw one day a pit, and then I just saw crystals falling, like Lemurian crystals just falling everywhere. Our teacher was killed while we were there. And so within 24 hours, they had created this, what they do in Hindu is where you have a ceremony to help them cross over, since it was violent. It wasn't expected.
Wait a minute.
And
I don't remember hearing this part of the story. Your teacher died during... Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
That's heavy.
There was a lot of things that happened while we were there, but that was probably the worst.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it was his first day going out swimming. That's what he did to luck, because he had COVID the week before, so we hadn't seen him for a week because he was quarantined.
Yeah.
And so it was his first day. He loved to go out and swim for like 20 minutes. That was his peace time. Like he always told us from class day 1, even if it's 10 minutes, go put yourself in that ocean every day. Take that time for yourself. I mean, he preached that to us every day. And so it was his first day back out in the water, and he was out swimming laps, and some young kid on a jet ski kept flying in, and a lot of the staff were out there like, hey, stop, you're not supposed to come to the shore. Well, he got mad and decided to zoom in, and he ran right over Pranava and split his head open and crushed his skull.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was horrible. So that night, they finally told us at like 10 p.m. It happened about 5:30, and we went all and sat in the main temple, and we chanted for like 30 minutes. And then, like I said, within 24 hours, they set up the ceremony, set up this stage, and the priest would say, speak Vishnu's name 10,000 times while we all did this ceremony, giving offerings. Offerings there were typically fruit. And so we were sitting there waiting for our turn to go because the ashram was full. And I was sitting in the chair and I closed my eyes and all of a sudden I see like a temple, like what you would picture in a Hindu temple. I saw our priest standing there and I saw Pranava standing in a dark corner, my teacher. And I was like, okay, I opened my eyes because I had to get up. Well, then towards the very end of the ceremony, after the 10,000 names were almost done, I closed my eyes again. And I saw Pranava laying on a slab with a blanket up to his thing. And the peace was over there. And I knew he was at peace. So I believed in that ceremony. I had no idea. It was amazing the different ceremonies we got to see in the different traditions. Mm-hmm. But the visions happened just randomly the entire time I was there without trying when I closed my eyes.
Mm-hmm. That's still so heartbreaking. I had no idea that happened to you when you were there. And I know the connection you have with, I mean, especially like a spiritual, devout teacher like you were able to sit in front of. That's like a next level high frequency connection. I don't think that there's words to put to it, but I know the connection that I had with my local yoga teacher that I had before my spiritual awakening. Like I woke up gradually in her class almost, like I was really coming home to myself and what I would say like coming home to God in a very long pathway, a long misunderstood pathway. And when she died, it just like took my feet out from under me. Because I was just like, that's impossible to me that she's gone. And the way that she was taken was just.
Yeah. Well, and it was crazy because as soon as she walked onto this grounds, I knew I was home. Like I started crying. I felt like I was home. Mm-hmm. And the energy was always high every day. And when that happened, it was like getting hit with a ton of bricks. How within just minutes the place changed. And it took probably 48 hours for it to come back up. But yeah, it was, he'd been with the organization for over 25 years.
Wow.
And he'd been teaching for 20 some years. The people he mentored and taught.
Well, yeah, just all the love that he was able to put out into the collective. That's what I see the most. And that's probably the most heart-wrenching thing is, when somebody dies and they've done such amazing work and lived such a full life, even when they left at a young age, it's just so hard to see that lantern go out and wonder.
He was doing something he loved, though. That's what everybody, all the teachers that have worked with him all these years, our 3 swamis, which are considered monks there, they said at least he went out with doing, because 7 months prior to us coming there, he had just been diagnosed with Parkinson's, and so he was shaking. Mm-hmm. So he wasn't going to be able to teach much longer, probably. Mm-hmm. So ultimately was probably the best way he could have gone, even though.
And that's what I thought, too, when you had told me that he was in the ocean when he passed, and that was like his happy place.
Yeah.
Obviously, again, a silver lining on a completely tragic situation, but thank you for sharing that with us. That's really hard. Like my heart's sinking and I never met him. So I could see it on your face when you were like, yeah, that happened. So obviously the vibes came back up and you guys were able to continue through this process. I'm sure that he was there in spirit pushing everybody on.
It was funny. The last day of class, we all got with our assistant teacher. She became taught us the rest of the time. So we all took a picture together. And in the photo, there's a little green dot on her shoulder, a green orb.
That's so sweet. That's still hard to imagine going there and making those connections,
Mm-hmm.
It's the funny thing about new connections. You're like, I just met you. You can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And then like it happens in front of you. You're like, mortality.
Mm-hmm.
Ain't that a bitch?
Yeah.
Yeah. So continue on the story, please. Tell me what's happening. You don't get to do energy work on people, but I can completely understand with this visions happening, especially in meditation or closing.
So that's kind of it with what happened there. I just felt kind of refreshed and new. I felt like, people kept saying, what do you miss from home? And I'm like, nothing. If they could tell me I could stay here tomorrow, I would. Mm-hmm. Like, I would have never came home. I wouldn't. And you can actually live there completely free if you help work a few hours a day. Mm-hmm. But before actually that, I want to just mention one more thing. So even after the Angelic Reiki, I'm like, I'm not doing this out in public. No one can know. I'm like, I still dug my feet in. I just wanted this for myself. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And of course, you know how spirit is. Stuff keeps happening. And finally one day I said, fine, if you want me to have, because I kept getting that I needed to have my own modality, not this, not Reiki. I needed to create something that was for me, to heal people. So one day during meditation, they showed me taking my hands and running them over people's body, and I would get electrical impulses wherever I needed to stop and clear energy. So that was in November of 21. And I did it on one friend or two friends, and then, like, you know what? I said, fine, I give in. And then March of 2022, I went and did an event. I said, I'm just going to do it. I didn't know who was going to be there. I'm like, if you want me to do this, you better show up. And of course, so I'm nervous as can be. I ended up doing 18 healing sessions in 2 days, and I was like the new kid on the block, and everybody's like, go in there, go in there. And so
that always feels good. That's how I finally my first reading events. I'm like, shit.
Right.
60% cry rate in this room, but it's okay.
So that's when I'm like, okay, fine, I'll do this publicly. And then I just started doing fairs everywhere. But these last 6 months.
Hold on. Before we hit the next speed on the roller coaster, I would like to tell you that when we worked that fair together, we were roommates in separate rooms. I was really, really excited to get some work done by you because I knew your training. I knew you were in line with the divine. And I just obviously feel comfortable with people that I feel really comfortable with you as a practitioner. I think like you're safe. That's probably the best way I could say it. So I'm sitting on the table and I didn't tell you about any of my injuries. I didn't tell you about nothing. I was just like, hey, you got time for me? And you're like, sit on the table. So like I laid on the table. I gave, consent to the team, Jesus, God that I talk with. And I was like, I know Tabatha's good for me. So like, let's do this. Let's rock this. And again, no matter how much I love you, no matter how safe I am with you, I always have a level of skepticism when I do these things, no matter what. You can't help it, right? So I'm just like, just give me a confirmation at the end of it that what was supposed to be received is received and what isn't for me goes away, right? Because doesn't mean everything you're going to receive is for you at the time. It could come out later. So you did like your thing, and like I sat back and I remember like you feeling your hands over the top of my head. And right when you put your hands over the top of my head, I felt this whoosh of energy, just everything unlocked and opened up. And I'm familiar with what energy work feels like. I'm familiar with 2 Kundalini awakenings at this point, not brought on by myself. So knowing like what is unlocking in my body and being very in tune because of my yoga practice as well. Again, I was safe, but I remember when my third eye opened up, there was this spirit guy that came up and was just kind of like talking to me in a very like sarcastic, mean, like, hey, we've been trying to talk to you. We're like, get your shit together almost, like, and it wasn't like being mean. It was like, quit playing small, quit acting like a beginner. But it's not like they were being forceful, because I don't want to say it's like bad energy, but like, I kind of like some shit talking to me sometimes. Okay. Like, come on, Shy, get your shit together. But I didn't want to be talked to like that right then because I still had readings to do for the next couple hours. So I literally swiped. I was like, yeah, thank you so much. And I swiped it until I got a guide that would talk nice to me. And I went through like all these avatars in my mind almost. And I was like, yep, someone that's nice. Yep, someone's going to talk nice to me. Okay, cool. Yep, you can be the translator for the team today. So then like everything washes through me. By the end of it, I can feel like strings cut underneath my body, which is usually like when I can tell things have been done. And then I get up and you give your feedback and we have like our little questionnaire. And you're like, yeah, you had, an issue right here in this knee, which is where I have scar tissue from tearing my meniscus a couple years ago. And you pulled you didn't say specifically what you pulled out, but what you pulled on and redirected me back to was the same spot right next to my ovary that I had spoken to 2 other very close friend practitioners. And one of them was like, basically like, when are you going to pull the arrow out of your fucking womb? You know, like, you don't need anybody to do it. Nobody's going to do it for you. We're just redirecting you back to the energy. But those were the 2 points that I was like, if like I'm supposed to work with her and I'm supposed to accept what she's saying, she's going to tell me about my knee, and she's going to highlight not the arrow specifically, but the area. She's going to give me her interpretation of the area. And you bing this shit just like, and I'm just staring at you, and I was like, I know you're the real deal. I would never doubt what you're doing, but damn, it feels so good. It feels so good to be so right in this moment and have this happen, you know. And in turn, I did give you a reading because, you know, trading services at that time. But yeah, you are absolutely magical.
So thank you.
Yes.
But it was interesting how from like March of 22 when I started to like January of this year, I mostly could see where people's chakras were blocked and why, and I could clear them and figure out why they were blocked. I often would get past life, like either one they actually lived, but more than that, I don't even get that very often. I actually saw past life injuries that were still hanging out in their energy fields. I have removed extra legs. I have built new heads. I have built new legs. Literally, my hands start shaping like new energetic pieces of these people. I mean, I've seen gashes in people, and I get the whole story when I heal these. Mm-hmm. And then I also get medical conditions sometimes where I can pick
fast downloads, right? Like you get third eye and clairaudience, like super quick, and it's just like downloaded.
Yeah, mostly clairaudience and claircognizance. Every once in a while, they'll show me a small image, but usually they're just like, "Oh, stop here." Mm-hmm. So yeah, that was kind of how it's been until I started shifting this last year even more. It's just been crazy.
Channeling powers.
So yeah, in April, I decided to do a QHHT session.
Oh, yes.
Because a mutual friend, healer friend, needed another client. Again, you're just sometimes just so shocked at what the hell happens to you.
Absolutely.
So we're in the middle of this session, and they speak to your subconscious. I'm completely out, right? Laid on the couch. Halfway through the section, she asked something about like, what's the message you have for the world or something? And all of a sudden, I start spitting out this entire dialogue. Like I knew I was channeling then. At the time, I had no idea for sure that I'd been channeling. It was clear as day that I was channeling God. I talked about how all the healers are supposed to work together, stop having competition, that if we don't keep trying to spread peace, love, and community, that the world is going to be worse than Sodom and Gomorrah. Like humans can't even fathom the depravity that's going to happen if we don't get our shit together. Mm-hmm. And it was like forceful, angry, like, you people need to stop. Like, it was insane.
Yeah, like, figure the fuck out, please.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That happened then, which I had never really channeled openly like that before. And the other thing that's happened to me, both of these things have happened to me again since that day, just normally, is I saw myself living in a cave. I saw a cave and I could tell that I was in there. And I knew I wasn't human. I'm like, what are you showing me? And it showed that I was an angel, but that on another timeline currently, I'm living on 2 timelines, I'm living in a cave to protect the pyramids over in Egypt because someone's going to try to destroy them.
Yeah, I can see that. People getting too close to the truth, so why don't we just destroy it for future generations?
Oh, yeah.
Us and future generations. I mean, I tread lightly on this, but I'm just also going to speak directly. The pyramids, what they were built for, are not what we were taught when we were kids, correct? 100%.
Correct.
And even modern day science has proved that. However, with the alignment of the stars, the alignment of tectonic plates, the alignment of the sand, and the deterioration of the pyramids at this time, we as humans on this earth would not be able to rebuild them to use them for what they were originally built for in the first place. However, if you want to disconnect a race from their source, you should make sure that you literally decimate any tool that could have helped them stay energetically connected to that source, which would be any of the pyramids, not only the one in Egypt, but placed all over the frickin' world. So that does make sense to me. But again,
And so,
pretty far out there for some normies.
and so I think I've been doing this kind of work for a long time because I haven't had a normal dream, but maybe once a month for the last 17 years. And so I asked why, and it says because I'm doing work on other planets.
I believe in astral travel too. I just had a super trippy dream a couple nights ago where I swear I was in a parallel universe or another dimension. And it would make sense. Our souls don't need to sleep. It's our human bodies that need to sleep.
But I always thought there was something wrong with me because it was like, you don't dream? And I'm like, no. Like, I just,
you wake up tired? Are you like,
oh,
guys,
yeah.
Can I get, a vacation?
Yeah. So yeah, that was in April, at the beginning of April. And during that session, I also got that I needed to let people work on me for healings that I'd never let work on me before. And as a healer, you know as well as I do how much we love that idea of letting other healers work on us just randomly, especially once we don't know.
No, it fucking terrifies me. And I close up on the table and I literally called Jesus. I'm like, Jesus, listen, I'm not trying to be egotistical. I'm not trying to be judgmental. But I've been working on my energy centers for a couple years now. And I don't know what this person has on them, how they protect themselves, what they're doing. I don't freaking know. I can't go in eyes wide open and with trusting, oh, let me get some black tourmaline and I'll be fine. No, you got me fucked up. I'm calling you Jesus. And if he's good with you, you can go through him. And that is where I stand on let's all work on each other, even though we don't know what the fuck we're doing.
Well, I was standing at a fair and I felt like someone whacked me upside the head. And I hear, this is your person. And I'm like, I didn't care for this person's personality too much.
Happens.
Just very loud and just not my cup of tea. They're like, this is your person. And I'm like.
So it's a person and a test and like one healer. It's like an ego test, right? Because you're like, what are you mirroring to me? It's not just about the other person. It's like, what are you mirroring to me that maybe I'm not seeing in myself? And then I have to open myself up to this person that I'm not immediately connected with.
Yep. So we scheduled a private session because I wasn't going to do it at a fair because I didn't know what the heck was going to happen with everything that's been going on. So
I don't blame you.
So she connects to me and she starts working on me. And then she's like, oh, she's been doing this my 16 years. Like, her process is very well defined, you know? She knows what she's doing. She does it the same with pretty much each person. And all of a sudden she's like, really? You want me to do that now? That's usually at the end. Like, she's very verbal. So she's like, well, they're telling me to do this. And I've never done this ever this early in this person. And so then she was going to tell me what she would do. And I would know what she was going to do before she would tell me, which is not something that I usually have happen. I said, and she's like, oh, I'm like, okay, I know what you're going to do. It's fine. Well, then while she was working on me, I was starting to be able to read her. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And so all of a sudden she starts blurting out how she's been seeing these blue people lately and she doesn't know who they are. And I just blurted out, oh, they're actuarians. She's like, what? Like, I could answer her questions and I would see different guides. And then all of a sudden we go back, we're going through this, and she's like working like on my abdomen, kind of like where your gallbladder, pancreas, liver would be. And she's like, keeps going, keeps going, keeps going, keeps going. And she's like, yep, nope, I'm done. Guys, you take over. And I don't know what they dug out of me. She couldn't figure out. She's never, like, she thought she was going to have to, like, literally get on the table and, like, go to town. She just couldn't. It freaked her out. Again, she'd been doing this for 16 years. She's like, nope, you guys take over. I don't want any part of this, right?
Yeah.
And she didn't know what she cleared. They never told her. That comes 2 months later. But so then she gets to working on my crown chakras, and it was insane, right? I could feel when she was done, she uses tuning forks and she taps each of your I could literally feel the energy shoot up where there was no blocks. First, when she did it, I could feel the block, like where it stopped. And then when she'd do it, I could actually feel it when it was open. It was insane. I had never felt energy like that. So come to find out, 2 months later, I see her at another fair. No, that was April, July, 3 months later. I see her at another fair, and I said, I think whatever this is on the side here, I think it's back. She's like, yeah, I'm not doing that again. She's like, there's someone else here I want you to work with. And I'm like, no. She's like, yes.
No.
So she told me, she's like, she likes to work with different things. I think you have it. The girl looks at me. She's like, oh, you have an implant. I'm like, no. So then I went back to my booth and literally pouted and sat on my table for like 30 minutes, threw a fit like a toddler. Why do I have to? I'm sitting there and they tell me, the reason you're doing this is because you are going to teach these seasoned people new tricks because they need to learn to shift. So I'm like going to be their fucking human guinea pig, sorry. But I'm just like, what?
That's how I feel in anything since I've woken up, though. I'm glad that you say that because you really do feel like a guinea pig. Again, you have to have radical faith in going into the unknown, you know, and just being like, it's footprints in the sand for me. This whole fucking journey for me has been that poem.
So I said, fine, I go over to this woman that I didn't know from Adam. And I said, okay, let's do this if we're going to do it, you know, with an attitude. So I sit in her chair and she scans me and she said, yeah, you have 3 implants here. You also have something here. And I'm like, okay, do whatever you do, right? I just sit there with my eyes closed. And all of a sudden she's like, okay, those are gone. And again, before she starts working on me, I know what she's going to do. And then she tells me and I'm like, uh-huh. So all of a sudden she's digging in my midsection and she's like, oh God. She's like, there's something in here I've never seen before. She's like, I'd have to energetically remove your rib. And I'm like, okay. She's like, oh my God, there's a sphere in here and it's like covered in slime. And she's like, I've never seen this before. She's like, and I take implants out of people all the time. That's kind of like my specialty. And I'm like, I don't care. Take it out. Whatever. Take it out. So we're good. And then she's like, nope, it won't come out. She's like, I'm going to have to remove your spine to get this out. So, okay. So I go stand on this, I get against the wall, put my hands on the wall. And when she goes, she literally puts her hands up, like at the top and the bottom, her fingers, and she goes to remove her spine. I feel it. I literally felt like my spine was being taken off my body. And then I feel this weight like lifted out of my body. And I'm like, for the love of God. And then she put my spine back and I felt like I grew 2 inches. I'm like, I don't know what the hell just happened. She's like, okay, sit down. Now we got to clear your upper 3 chakras. The top, you know, the soul star in the stellar, the ones above your head. I go sit in this chair, close my eyes, and as soon as she goes to open the first one, that's 12-inch, your soul star above your crown, I literally felt like someone hit the hammer and went, bam, boom, and I shoot clear out of the universe, literally. And I'm sitting there, and she's like, Tabatha, and I can hear her, but I cannot respond to her. I keep trying. Nothing. And all of a sudden she goes, where are you? I said, closer to God than I ever was. And I started channeling God again. I again told her about Sodom and Gomorrah and everybody having to be like. I could tell her that she was going to be having another activation soon and she was going to be working with Anubis. And I just went on and she started questioning me about the channel and God would answer her back through me. And I'm sitting here. I had no idea what's going on. I just know my mouth was moving faster than it could possibly move, and it was just giving her a 20-minute dialogue, and then all of a sudden it stops. Yeah. So I was not fully present and back in my body. That was at 12 o'clock. We were done at 12:45 until 10:30 that night, and I felt weird for 3 days. Off.
How could you not? I felt weird for 3 days. Yeah, it sounds like you did DMT sober.
I know. People have asked me to, like, you want to try, mushrooms? You want to try? I'm like, no, I see enough without any of that. Who knows what I would see? Absolutely not. Yeah. People keep asking me. I'm like, absolutely not. I'm good. I see plenty.
It still is my goal to shoot an ayahuasca and a DMT documentary, like, years apart. But that's just... No. That's for my bag of traumas that just need to be ripped out of me from a shaman.
I'm good. So
that
was in July.
So you're going through upgrade after upgrade after upgrade after upgrade.
Oh yeah. Yep. So then September comes around. No, I take that back. End of July, I do an event. This guy lays on my table And it's like, well, when he walked up, I'm like, oh God, this is going to be a doozy. Because usually I can tell right away if they're going to be a hard clearing. So I get done, he lays down and I do some clearing. I'm like, well, that was nothing. All of a sudden they're like, look up. I look up about 12 inches off this guy's body and there is a portal. And I'm like, yeah, nope, disconnect that, close that up. You need to go, bye-bye. So yeah, I didn't know it was possible for a human to be walking around with a portal, letting all kinds of beings into the world. It was gross. And then we get to September. Now, I have believed in aliens, but I have no desire to work with them. Whatever, I know they're here, just not my thing. I mean, I watch Ancient Aliens, but that's just because I love all the science.
You and me both.
So this girl gets on my table. And I could tell, like, all weekend long, I could not look at her. Like, I've been with her Friday, Saturday, we were at this event, and I just could not look at her. I'm just like, bleh, you know? Her energy was heavy and dense, and I'm just like, yeah, no. So she decides she wants work on Sunday. She gets on my table, and her energy, as soon as I connect to her, just feels like sludge. Heavy sludge. And all of a sudden, they're like, look up. And I'm like, oh gosh. What now? And I look up maybe like 4 inches into her energy field, and there's this creature that looks like an alien squatting down in her energy field with a bowl underneath of its body. And I'm like, what the hell? And it looks up at me with these sharp razor teeth, and I'm like, oh no, you got to go. So I kick this thing out of her energy field, realizing that it's basically has this bowl that's halfway full of eggs, and that he's sucking all the life out of this girl. And so when I get up, I said, are you depressed? Yeah. I said, do you let everybody walk over you? Yeah. I said, do you not want to live anymore? She's like, yeah. I said, well, this is why. She had no idea. Yeah. That there was this creature living in her thing. And then I see this other guy. So I see ET energy different than alien energy. A lot of people think they're the same. For me, they're not. I work on people all the time that are ET-like energy. They're usually like floating out through their third eye crown. They're very large. They're like, nope, you have to stay on Earth, you know, stay in the body type of thing. Mm-hmm. I've only ever actually had to work on 2 alien people. That is what they tell me that they are. One of them was last year, was a 10-year-old boy. And it took me forever to connect with him. And he would only show me from his knee down. And his legs looked like intertwined twigs. So this same weekend with this girl, this guy gets on the table. He very much knows he travels, does ghost hunting, does all the things, right? Very aware of the energy. So I get on the table. So when I connect to someone, I always say, so-and-so, their names, higher self, please show me how I can help this person the most to fulfill their purpose on Earth, is what I say. Always. And this person's higher self just kind of looks at me, stubs his nose at me, and like, please, and turns away. And I'm like, excuse me, he got on my table. You're gonna let me in. I'm going to work on this person. And I kept saying it, and finally, I usually only ask 3 times, and after 3 times, I'm like, I'm not working with this person. So this being lets me in, even though it keeps telling me it's its higher self, which I'm sure that it wasn't. Again, only lets me see the lower part of this person's legs, which are, again, those wooden twigs. And I see these lines that look like parentheses around his head. There was 1 on the right and 2 on the left. And I'm like, what is this? He can actually travel to 3 different dimensions. So now I'm seeing people's dimensions in them energy.
Well, that's definitely interesting, because I'm a dimensional believer.
Not me. I've been trying to find a book right for the last couple of weeks now on dimensions.
Oh, I'm totally a believer. But I learned in it from like quantum physics and quantum mechanics. Like I found a grounded perspective just from like universal energy, electromagnetic fields, densities, and dimensions. And then I connected that with somewhat of like a spiritual aspect. But there's a show on Gaia called like Channeling Tigetans or something like that, and it's transmissions, and they ask them questions about karma and densities and why are you talking to us? Why are you trying to help us? And they bring up things from the past that have happened and why they had to happen. It even correlates with the volunteers from Dolores Cannon's channeled work. And they do a wonderful explanation on densities and dimensions and explaining why we have linear time on Earth, why we are locked in a density, and why some people have said like Earth is a prison, but it's not a prison for the earthling entities on there. It's imprisoning other lower vibrational beings that are pulling the density of Earth down by manipulating humans. So I honestly recommend that show. I'll have to link it below for anybody that wants to watch it. But for you, listening to those channels made a lot of the other stuff in science make sense for me as well. And I wasn't really a believer in being able to communicate with beings like that at the time because I really wasn't open to it. I still thought it was extremely sci-fi at the time. And now understanding collective consciousness, the all, everything being created from the one true creator, the one true source, it would make sense in the levels of energy. And like Earth is down here, we're considered a third planet if you were to speak in the Theoba prophecy book that I'm also going to send you. And then you go up to like the 9th planet, but then you can even go into 12th dimensions. And there's so many different ways. And I think it's important for people that are listening or that are interested in these topics that no matter how we try to pinpoint and explain these things, it does no justice to what is actually out there. Even what we see in these healing sessions, what comes to us, the information we're able to research, it's the best that we can do with the limitedness of our human perceptions. And that is what I find so fascinating about any of the stories that come on and any of the research that we do. And especially with you, I mean, my heart goes out to you because you see beings that you're like, what the fuck are you? I got to go find a book about you now. You know?
Yeah, that's the part that I did leave out. So when was it? June? I was outside and I found this stick and I'm like, I have to have this, right? It was just a twig with a trick around it. Then I was outside again and I found this other stick. And as soon as I picked it up, I felt like I had to shoot people with a gun, like, pew, pew, pew. Like, this stick comes from, I'm like, why am I collecting sticks? I mean, yeah, I like nature. I go hiking all the time, but I don't ever pick anything up but rocks. Then I went to the Metaphysical Fair in September in Denver. And there was this piece of Chihuahua cactus and this girl had put crystals in it. As soon as I picked this thing up, my arm raised kind of like I was raising it like a sword. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to put that back down.
Oh, yeah, we talked about that. It was the one where it kind of feels like if you like put your hands in a doorway and then you turn and they like raise up on their own.
Yes.
Yeah, that was super trippy.
Yeah, and my friend was with me. She's like, oh my God, as soon as you touched that thing, your angel wings just flew out and about whacked me. And I'm like, I put it down. Then I went back and bought it the next day. And so I've been sitting with this thing because every time I touch it, I feel like I'm being plugged in again. I finally started using this thing. And every time I use it, I cannot come back in my body very well. I stay out there pretty far, but I've been using it to like cut things out of people and to realign their energy field. But yeah, it lights me up. Like I had an event in Topeka.
You showed me at the last show I saw you at?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I did a solo event in Topeka by myself where I had to drive home. I had the hardest time staying in my body trying to come home. I was like, la la la, no, wait, I'm driving. Like, oh my gosh.
La, 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 la.
But that thing makes me feel like I've been electrified and I'm just like so full of power. Oh my God.
Honestly, if I touch selenite, that's honestly what does it for me.
Well,
if you could see my room, I'm surrounded by selenite.
I have it everywhere
but
too.
But I have crazy landlines. I shouldn't say landlines. I should say ley lines. Yeah, I have crazy ley lines in the neighborhoods that I live in, just from, I mean, literally past energy is the best way to describe it. And I was like, why? I've never collected so much selenite in my life until I moved into this neighborhood. And now I'm just like,
Mm-hmm. I just bought a Merkaba. I just bought a Merkaba that's this big of selenite.
Dream. I have a bloodstone Merkaba, and now you've just upped I need that in my life game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I finally had two more incidents lately. One of them was last weekend at the fair. I had this girl come on my table, and again, she told me her name. And I said, so-and-so's higher self, please allow me. Nothing. Said it a second time, nothing. I'm like, okay, this is the final time. You're either going to let me in to work with her or not. And they're like, you're calling the wrong name. And I'm like, she told me her name, it's written on the paper. She signed, right? They're like, no, you need to ask for Crystal. That's not what this girl's name was. So I'm like, okay. I say this name, and all of a sudden, boom, I'm in this girl's field, right? And I see this spaceship over her body circulating. And I'm like, what are you showing me this for? They're like, she also works on 2 dimensions. Crystal is her other self that works in the spaceship. And then when I went back to work on this lady, I found that she had implants in her, and I had to use my tool on her. And I also seen that they had biopsied one of her ovaries at one point. And so when we were done, I told her all this. I said, do you sleep at night? Do you dream at night? She said, no. I wake up tired. I said, I bet you travel in this spaceship with your alter ego named Crystal. She's like, that would make sense.
A lot of that stuff is really hard for people to hear. Like when you're going in and you're trying to figure out what's going on with your physical body, you've just met what you're still skeptical of, an energy body, and then you have someone throw an alien encounter at you. It could really either wake you up and send you on your path, or it could shoot you back into a comfort zone. And these fucking people are crazy.
I'm very cautious with when I start talking to them about the basic stuff at first.
Yeah, like you kind of got to feel it out. It's like, what crystal do you like? They're like, rose quartz. You're like, oh, so you're just beginning your journey.
Yeah, so that's... And then last week was the final thing that's happened that's been mind-blowing. I haven't meditated since June because my life's been a whirlwind the last 4 months with moving and everything else, surgery. So I decided, you know what, I was having a rough day. I'm like, I'm done not doing this anymore, because I used to meditate twice a day. Mm-hmm. And so I hadn't meditated since June 19th. I always put it in my journal. So I never set intentions. I always just say, angels guide, whatever I need to know, do next, show me. This time I intentionally said, if I have a message that I can channel from God, I'm open to receive. I'm also open to receive any messages from any of my ascended masters or my angels. And also lately I've been getting the sense that I need to work with other people besides my current business partner. I said, if there's anybody else that I'm supposed to work with, please tell me and show me how I'm to work with them. I'm like, we're just going to do this because I don't ever do this, right? So I sat and I did my mantra meditation first, which is I do. I was initiated into Ganesh mantra when I was at the ashram, and I was gifted the name Uma by our swamis. And Uma is an aspect of poverty, which is Ganesh's mom. So when we do your mantra, you repeat that deity's mantra 108 times while you count your mala. Because usually if I restart meditation, I'm like 10 minutes, I'm done. So I knew I was going to need assistance. So I'm using my mala, and I go through all 108 Ganesh. And so then I'm just sitting there. And all of a sudden, I have my notebook, and I start automatic writing, just channeling. And the first time I heard Tabatha, but usually when I channel, I hear I or you. And halfway through, I started seeing this we. So finally, at the very end, I'm like, who is we? Because I've never seen we ever in my channeling or my automatic writing ever in the last 2 years. And I hear, hi, we are the primordial 3. We are from the 9th dimension. We will now be with you for the rest of your journey. We are full of love and light, and we are here to help you create that on earth. And now you'll be able to channel us at any time. Okay, I just got goosebumps saying that out loud again. Yeah.
So that's where you're at now, is definitely like the 9th planet and really stepping into your power as a channeler.
And I've been really fighting with this word powerful, because everybody who's seen me work with my new wand cross can see the power in me. And to the point where we were arguing about this all last week, and they're like, you're powerful. I'm like, no, it's just growth. This is just growth. This isn't power. And I just want to deny it so bad. Like, I don't want to use that word because I struggle with that word.
Yeah.
Because I don't ever want to be above anybody because I've always felt alone and I've never had anybody in my corner. No one, ever. I've been alone since I was a kid. Mm-hmm. I've done everything by myself. I've never had a support system. So this idea of creating this community, I don't want to be powerful because I don't want to offend anybody.
Person. You don't want to be a guru or on a pedestal or anything that people portray that they're not, but still.
Because then I'm going to lose this community, right? Yeah, I'm going to lose the community that I've created.
You want a circle.
And I want to keep it. And so if I have this power. So we've been on this bantering back and forth with my community, how powerful I am. And they keep wanting to say it and rub it in my face. And I'm like, no, this is just growth. Yeah. I kept saying, I'm not saying the P word. I'm not saying the P word last weekend because they kept trying to get me to say it. So I'm really trying to work on the whole. But when I hold on to that wand, it does. I feel like I could take on the world.
So if people wanted to book services with you, do you do stuff online or is it just in person that you're able to do it?
I teach classes and stuff online, but healings I don't. I'm very connected to energy, even though I don't touch them. I just don't feel like the energy is appropriate for me to do it online because it is so profound.
Mm-hmm. I get that. Everybody has their preference. What classes could people sign up for you or sign up for you?
Online, I actually have a chakra class that I'm teaching that's starting here in a couple of weeks. I also teach various essential oil classes. I teach classes on spirituality, like what's a medium, what's a psychic. I also have a class called Empowering Inner Peace, where we learn what grounding is, clearing is, nourishing yourself. So I can teach any of those over Zoom.
That's amazing.
But yes, if you would like to contact me, the easiest way is to go to my Facebook page. It's called Essentially One Wellness LLC. And then there's a link on there to my link tree where you can actually book and see all my services and all my classes.
And also, if you just hit the description right now below, you can hit Connect with Tabatha or Uma, which I'm totally putting that as the side note, and you can get in contact. Do you have any advice for our listeners before we get off here?
Just to find your people, find that community that's going to help you grow and be the best version of yourself so that you can live your purpose. That's why you chose to come to Earth. You need to fulfill your purpose and let your light shine.
Beautiful. Well, I really appreciate you being so vulnerable with us today and telling you all this. I know it wasn't easy. I know we came into this wanting to be anonymous, and I think it just shows, more compatibility with you embodying everything that you're going through. And I send you so much love on your new channeling journey, because channeling is definitely one of the most profound things I have ever seen, experienced, and heard of as well.
Thank you so much.
And feel free to come back and tell us any new stories or anything that you'd like to fill us in on in the future, okay?
Will do.
Okay, my friends, before I get out of here, I am bringing you Nightcap, also with Big Wise Brass Band. We're going to listen to a song called Do Travel. So I will see y'all on the next episode, and I hope you know I love you so much.
You should be leaving all these people and faces, taking you to places you didn't want to go alone. Oh, well, you're out there losing your mind. I hope you find, hopefully, the man that can take you home. Well, your mind, as well as your soul, it's taking the road less traveled by, only to know that you live high. Well, your mind, as well as your soul, is taking the road less traveled by, only to know that you live high. It's not the time, it's a guilt you'll find in seeing your whole life has been passing on you, and all those damn years that have turned you blue. Look at your face.